When it comes down to it, pretty much everything I say about spiritual exploration is metaphorical. Even the term spiritual exploration is a metaphor. To explore, after all, means to travel in or through an unknown area in order to learn about it. But in our case, we're not actually going anywhere. And the thing about which we seek to learn isn't some area or region out in the world, but rather an integral part of ourselves. I hope that my use of metaphors will help solidify this otherwise abstract process. And in the future, I'll use different metaphors to talk about it. But for now, the image that I've conveyed, that of journeying within as if spelunking into a dark cave, best illustrates the challenges ahead. So let's stick with it a little while longer. Now let me ask you this. If you were tasked with exploring and mapping out a network of underground caves, how would you prepare? I imagine you wouldn't go in blind without any sense of what you might encounter down there. Nor for that matter would you go in with just the clothes on your back. I imagine you would do some research first. Maybe even talk to some experienced cave divers. Ask them for advice, best practices, and the types of things you might expect in that dark cave. You might also stock up on the necessary tools of the trade. You might get a headlamp, some sturdy rope, clean water and food, maybe a compass or a GPS in case you get turned around, and things of that nature. Well, my friends, spiritual exploration is no different. Before we go within, we have to make the necessary preparations. Now, I don't consider myself an expert explorer by any stretch. In fact, when it comes down to this stuff, I'm pretty much a novice. I've only been on the path for a few years, and I feel I have much yet to learn, much ground left to explore. In fact, I have a sneaking suspicion that the journey is endless, that no matter how long I engage with the process of spiritual exploration, there will always be new discoveries to be made, or at the very least, new ways of looking at old discoveries. That being said, I still feel as if I have something of value to offer any aspiring explorers. Because unlike you who are approaching this noble quest by way of a conscious, deliberate decision, I stumbled into the cave entirely by accident. And by the time I realized where I was and the fact that I'd gotten lost, it was too late. I couldn't turn back. As a result, I had to spend the last few years learning the hard way, through stubborn persistence, trial and error. I was lucky enough to discover the works of my predecessors, the sages, mystics, and philosophers who came before me and left behind maps and notes about their own inward journeys. And so what I share on this channel is nothing original and certainly nothing new. Rather, it's an original take on the well-documented insights and discoveries of my predecessors. People like Lao Tzu, Marcus Aurelius, Khalil Gibran, Alan Watts, Joseph Campbell, Carl Jung, and many, many others. Having said that, each person follows a unique path into the psyche, and there encounters content that is shaped by that person's culture, biology, and past experiences. As such, I can't predict what you will encounter once you cross the threshold. And so for that reason, I want to prepare you for the general, not the particular. I want to give you tools that are going to assist you no matter what you encounter while exploring the inner landscape. And by far the best advice I can give you, the one thing you can do to make sure you get the most out of this adventure, is to suspend all of your beliefs, set aside everything you think you know, and approach spiritual exploration under the assumption that you know absolutely nothing. In martial arts, they call this approach a white belt mindset, a state of open-minded curiosity fueled by the genuine desire to learn. The idea is that any person or any situation has some insight of value to offer, if only you will open yourself up to receive it. And indeed, some of the best martial artists in the world are adamant that this is the attitude that brought them to the pinnacle of their craft. In Zen Buddhism, they call this approach Shoshen, which means literally beginner's mind. Shunryu Suzuki, a world-renowned master who brought Zen to Western audiences back in the 60s and 70s, explains it like this. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few. Because the expert believes he already knows everything there is to know, few possibilities exist in his mind. Everything is settled, organized according to his particular beliefs in an orderly fashion. The expert has no time to consider possibilities that fall outside of his paradigm, and so he dismisses everything that does without due consideration. For this reason, the expert is blind to the myriad possibilities he has failed to consider, to the more subtle, nuanced, and accurate realities that abound, but go unnoticed. Fueled by certainty, the expert has no desire to learn because he believes in his heart of hearts that he already knows. Meanwhile, realizing that you don't know is considered by many traditions to be the first hint of wisdom. And it's also the cornerstone of the scientific method, which can only disprove a theory and never fully affirm it. Now let's consider the beginner whose mind we will attempt to replicate ahead of our inner journey. The beginner's new to the game, and so she approaches learning from the assumption that she doesn't know. She observes, studies, and analyzes without any reference to previously held beliefs and opinions, and in this way, she learns what she does not yet know. The father of Western philosophy, Socrates himself, expressed a very similar sentiment. When asked why he was considered by many to be the wisest person on earth, he answered, "Because I know one thing for certain, that I know nothing." Why is this important to us now, at the onset of our great adventure into the psyche? Well, because spiritual exploration is basically a process of inquiry. By asking ourselves certain questions, we uncover and test some of our most basic assumptions about the way things are and the way they ought to be. And since these assumptions are foundational, every other belief and opinion we hold will be impacted by this inquiry, one way or another. If we begin the process while clinging to what we think we already know, we will discover nothing new, nothing noteworthy, nothing valuable. In fact, everything we discover will be made to fit our current paradigm, to affirm and justify what we already believe. Meanwhile, we will remain blind to certain obvious facts about ourselves, and ignorant of the many underlying assumptions that inform our every thought, our every word, and our every deed without us knowing it. Now, if you think suspending all of your most cherished beliefs and opinions is easier said than done, don't worry. Next episode, I'll give you more compelling reasons why you should seriously consider the possibility that you don't know shit. If I do my job right, suspending your beliefs should be a breeze. So tune in next week, and I'll explain why the only thing I'm certain of is that certainty is sin. Thanks for watching this episode of The Outsider's Perspective. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it gave you food for thought, and I hope you'll tune in for more of that food next Thursday. Glorious Thursday, the most holy day of the week. Until then, live well, my friends.